Ambassador Daniel Crawford adjusted his tie as he stared out the viewport of the United Nations Space Command Station. Earth hung below, a blue marble wrapped in white clouds. The year was 2157, and humanity had spread across the solar system, with colonies on Mars and mining operations extending to the asteroid belt. Yet today would change everything. Today, humans would no longer be alone in the universe. "They're approaching, sir," said Samantha Powell, his aide. Her voice was steady, but Daniel noticed how tightly she gripped her tablet. "Thank you, Sam. Is the reception all ready?" "Yes, sir. Secretary General Grant arrived 10 minutes ago with the Security Council representatives." Daniel nodded and took a deep breath. 6 months ago, the Deep Space Monitoring Station near Neptune had detected the alien vessels. After initial communication, they identified themselves as the Xalaxians, a spacefaring civilization from a star system 80 light-years away. They claimed to seek peaceful relations and technological exchange. The station's alert system chimed softly. "Xalaxian shuttle docking in 5 minutes," announced the automated voice. Daniel straightened his shoulders. As Earth's top diplomat, the weight of first contact rested on him. Humanity's future might depend on how well he performed today. "Let's go meet our guests," he said to Samantha. They walked through the curved corridors of the station. Military personnel stood at attention, their faces betraying a mix of excitement and anxiety. Humanity had prepared for this moment for generations, but preparation was different from reality. The reception hall was the largest room on the station. A long table with Earth's finest foods and drinks stood along one wall. Flags from every nation hung from the ceiling. The Secretary General, Elizabeth Grant, a tall woman with silver hair, approached Daniel. "Ambassador Crawford, everything rests on this meeting," she said quietly. "The public is watching. Some are excited, others terrified. We need this to go well." "I understand, Madam Secretary. I'll do my best." A soft tone signaled the arrival of their visitors. The large doors at the far end of the hall slid open. 4 Xalaxians entered. They were roughly human-shaped but taller, with bluish-gray skin that seemed to shimmer under the lights. Their 4-fingered hands ended in short claws, and their eyes were large and completely black. They wore fitted suits that looked like liquid metal. The lead Xalaxian stepped forward. "I am Zortek, ambassador of the Xalaxian Collective. We bring greetings to Earth." Daniel stepped forward and bowed slightly. "Ambassador Zortek, I am Daniel Crawford, representing the United Nations of Earth. We welcome you to our home." The formal introductions continued. The Xalaxians were polite but reserved. They accepted food offerings but barely touched them. They spoke about their journey and their civilization, which they claimed was thousands of years more advanced than Earth's. "We offer friendship and knowledge," said Zortek. "Our sciences can help your people. In return, we seek only peaceful trade." "What kind of trade interests you?" asked Daniel. "Your world has abundant water and certain minerals rare in our sector of the galaxy." The meeting lasted 3 hours. As it ended, Daniel felt uneasy. Something about the Xalaxians seemed off. They shared technology freely but avoided questions about their military capabilities or planetary defenses. Later, in his private office, Daniel reviewed the meeting recordings. "What do you think, Sam?" he asked. Samantha frowned. "They're hiding something. Did you notice how they kept looking at each other before answering certain questions?" "I caught that too. And they seemed very interested in our resource distribution." A soft knock interrupted them. Kyle Winters, the station's intelligence officer, entered. "Sir, we detected encrypted transmissions between the Xalaxian shuttle and their main ship still orbiting Jupiter. Our computers can't break the code, but the timing is suspicious. They sent the largest data burst right after viewing our water purification facilities." Daniel stared out the viewport at the stars. "Keep monitoring them, and get me everything we have on their ship's capabilities." "There's something else, sir," Samantha said, looking up from her tablet. I just received word that our deep space relay near Pluto picked up signals. More Xalaxian ships have entered our solar system. They didn't mention reinforcements. Daniel's unease grew stronger. So our new friends aren't being entirely honest with us. Let's find out what they're really after. 6 months passed since first contact. Daniel sat in the negotiation room, watching Zortek carefully. The alien's smooth face revealed little emotion, but Daniel had learned to spot the slight twitch of Zortek's left eye when he was hiding something. Ambassador Crawford, we find your water access proposal insufficient, said Zortek. Our people require at least 3 times the amount you've offered. Daniel leaned forward. 3 times would drain the Great Lakes in 20 years. We cannot agree to that. Zortek's eye twitched. Perhaps your people don't understand the value of what we offer in return. Our medical technology alone could extend human life by 50 years. The negotiation room fell silent. Daniel knew the other human representatives were tempted. Who wouldn't want to live longer? But something felt wrong about how eagerly the Xalaxians pursued Earth's water. We will consider your request and respond tomorrow, Daniel said finally. After the Xalaxians left, Secretary General Grant approached Daniel. The public is growing impatient, she said. Half want to embrace the Xalaxians fully. The other half fear we're being tricked. We need progress, Daniel. I understand, but rushing could be dangerous. Their demands keep growing. Later that evening, Daniel met with Kyle Winters in a secure room deep within the station. Kyle had dark circles under his eyes from weeks of analyzing Xalaxian communications. What have you found? Asked Daniel. Kyle displayed images on the wall screen. We intercepted transmissions between their fleet. They'd visited at least 7 other star systems before reaching Earth. They told us we were their first contact beyond their home system, Daniel said, his suspicion growing. There's more. We've detected unusual energy readings from their ships. Their technology is far more advanced than what they shared with us. The door opened, and Admiral Gregory Hayes entered. Tall and serious, he commanded Earth's space defense forces. Ambassador, we've been monitoring Xalaxian ship movements. They've positioned vessels near every major water source on Earth, oceans, ice caps, even underground aquifers. They say it's for survey purposes, but their ships carry weapons we can't even understand. Daniel rubbed his forehead. Have we prepared any defensive measures? Quietly, yes. I've stationed our newest ships behind the moon and increased production of the prototype shields based on the limited technology the Xalaxians have shared. The next day, Daniel met with Zortek again. The alien seemed more impatient than usual. Have you considered our generous offer? Zortek asked. We have. Before proceeding, I have questions about your previous encounters with other species. Zortek's entire body stiffened. Previous encounters? Yes. You told us Earth was your first contact beyond your home system, but we have reason to believe otherwise. The Xalaxian recovered quickly. A translation error, clearly. We have encountered simple life forms, nothing as advanced as humans. And what happened to these simple life forms? Daniel pressed. Zortek's voice turned cold. Those who understand cooperation prosper. Those who don't prosper. The threat hung in the air between them. That night, Samantha burst into Daniel's office. Sir, we've intercepted something important. She played a communication between Xalaxian ships. Though in their language, the translation software caught key phrases, resource extraction timeline, and resistance protocols. There's more, she said. A human research vessel, the Northern Star, just returned from the Ta CD system. They need to speak with you immediately. Hours later, Captain Olivia Martinez stood before Daniel. Her uniform was worn, her face gaunt. Ambassador, we encountered another alien species, the Arcturians. They warned us about the Xalaxians. This isn't their first peaceful contact. They come, they negotiate, they extract resources, and then what? Daniel asked. though he already suspected the answer. Then they take the planet. The Arcturians showed us evidence of 12 worlds stripped bare after Xalaxian diplomatic missions. Earth is next, Ambassador. Daniel stared at the stars through his viewport. All his suspicions confirmed in the worst possible way. Get me secure communications with every Earth government, he said, and arrange a meeting with these Arcturians. It's time to change our approach. Captain Olivia Martinez stood before the Security Council. Her uniform was stained, her face thin from months in deep space. Behind her stood 3 crew members from the research vessel Northern Star, equally worn and tired. The Arcturians found us near Ta City, Olivia explained. At first we thought they would attack. Instead, they saved us. She activated a small device that projected images into the air. Strange ships with curved hulls appeared, then images of blue-skinned aliens with 4 arms. The Arcturians have been watching the Xalaxians for decades. They warned us that everything the Xalaxians have told us is a lie. Daniel studied the images carefully. Why would the Arcturians help us? Because they were victims too, Olivia said. 20 years ago, the Xalaxians came to their world. They offered technology, medicine, and friendship. Within 5 years, the Xalaxians had taken control of their major water sources. Within 10, the Arcturians who resisted were either dead or enslaved. The room fell silent. Secretary General Grant finally spoke. Do we have proof beyond their word? Olivia nodded to one of her crew members, who stepped forward with a data drive. The Arcturians gave us records of Xalaxian attacks on 12 different worlds. Their pattern is always the same. First contact, technology exchange, resource treaties, then conquest. Kyle took the drive and connected it to their secure system. Images appeared on the main screen showing beautiful worlds reduced to barren wastelands. This is what happens when the Xalaxians finish with a planet, Olivia said quietly. Daniel's mind raced. If this is true, we need to change our approach immediately. Half the Security Council won't believe this, Grant warned. They'll say it's a trick, that these Arcturians have their own agenda. Which is why I need to meet with Zortek, Daniel decided. I want to see his reaction when I mention the Arcturians. Hours later, Daniel sat across from Zortek in the negotiation room. The Xalaxians seemed impatient. We expected an answer on the water treaty by now, Ambassador Crawford. Daniel smiled politely. Before we continue, I'd like to discuss something interesting. One of our ships encountered another species, the Arcturians. Do you know them? The change was subtle but clear. Zortek's posture stiffened. His left eye twitched rapidly. We have encountered many species in our exploration, the alien said carefully. The Arcturians are primitive and hostile. They attack peaceful travelers. You should not trust anything they say. Interesting, Daniel said. They said similar things about you. Zortek stood suddenly. This meeting is over. We expect your answer on the treaty within 3 days. Do not disappoint us. After the Xalaxian left, Samantha turned to Daniel. He was definitely rattled. More than rattled, Daniel said. He was afraid. The Arcturians know something the Xalaxians don't want us to know. That night, Daniel met secretly with Captain Martinez in a secure underground room. The Arcturians mentioned a way to contact them. Daniel asked. Olivia handed him a small device. This will signal their scout ship hiding near Jupiter. They're waiting for our decision. What decision? Whether Earth will fight or surrender. Daniel looked at the simple device in his hand. It seemed impossible that something so small could determine humanity's future. The Xalaxians have given us 3 days to answer their demands, he said finally. Then we have 3 days to prepare, Olivia replied. The Arcturians say they can help us defend ourselves, but we need to act quickly. Daniel nodded, making his decision. Send the signal. Tell them we want to meet. As the signal beamed out toward Jupiter, Daniel stared at the stars through the small window. Do you think we can trust these Arcturians? Samantha asked. I don't know, Daniel admitted. But I'm certain we can't trust the Xalaxians. And right now, we need allies. A soft beep came from the communication device. The Arcturians had responded. They would meet with Daniel in 2 days. We should prepare the Security Council, Samantha suggested. Daniel shook his head. Not yet. Too many leaks. If the Xalaxians discover we're talking to the Arcturians before we're ready. He didn't need to finish the sentence. They all understood what was at stake. I need everything we have on the Xalaxians, Daniel said. Every communication, every scan of their ships, every word they've said since they arrived. There's a pattern here, and we need to find it before time runs out. Daniel stared at the holographic display in the secure room. 12 planets glowed red, forming a path through space that ended at Earth. Samantha and Kyle stood beside him, their faces grim. Are we certain about this? Daniel asked. Kyle nodded. The Arcturians provided star charts. We cross-referenced them with our own deep space observations. These 12 worlds were all visited by the Xalaxians within the last century. And what happened to them? Daniel's voice was quiet. Samantha changed the display. Images of barren, dry planets appeared. Complete resource extraction. The Xalaxians took all water, valuable minerals, and then moved on. The native species were either enslaved or eliminated. Daniel felt sick. They're doing the same to Earth. The water negotiations are just the beginning. A message alert blinked on the screen. Admiral Hayes appeared on the display from his secret base on Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. Ambassador, we've intercepted more Xalaxian communications. There's a fleet hiding behind Saturn. At least 30 ships, far more than the 5 they officially disclosed to us. What kind of firepower are we talking about? Daniel asked. More than Earth has ever seen. My team estimates one of their destroyer-class vessels could take out half of North America. Daniel turned to Dr. Alan Peterson, a xenobiologist who had been studying Xalaxian biology from the limited samples they provided. Tell me what you've learned, Doctor. Alan adjusted his glasses. The Xalaxians evolved on a desert world. Their biology suggests extreme resource conservation. They don't waste anything. Their entire history would be shaped by fighting for limited resources. So they see other planets as simply resources to be harvested, Daniel concluded. Exactly. And based on their physiology, they can't survive on Earth long-term without our water. They need it to live. Daniel walked to the window, watching Earth spin below the station. They're not here for peaceful exchange. They're here to take what they need and leave us with nothing. Samantha's tablet chimed. Sir, the Xalaxians are demanding an answer on the water treaty. They've given us 1 Earth week to finalize terms. They're accelerating their timeline, Kyle said. They must suspect we're onto them. Daniel made a decision. Contact the UN Security Council. Emergency session, highest security. And get me a secure channel to the Arcturian vessel. Hours later, Daniel stood before the Security Council. Representatives from every major Earth government listened as he laid out the evidence. The pattern is clear, Daniel explained. The Xalaxians approach a world offering technology and knowledge. They negotiate access to key resources. Once they have established themselves, they bring in their full fleet and strip the planet bare. The Chinese representative leaned forward. What proof do we have beyond the word of these Arcturians? They could have their own agenda. Daniel nodded to Kyle, who displayed satellite images of the hidden Xalaxian fleet. 30 warships hiding behind Saturn, with weapons capable of destroying entire continents. They told us they came with 5 scientific vessels. Everything about their mission has been a lie. The room erupted in voices. Some called for immediate military action. Others insisted on continued diplomacy. What options do we have? Asked the Russian representative. If their technology is as advanced as you say, we cannot win a direct conflict. Daniel took a deep breath. The Arcturians have offered us help. They've been fighting the Xalaxians for decades. They have technology that could give us a chance. Can we trust them? The American representative asked. More than we can trust the Xalaxians, Daniel replied. The Arcturians have suffered at their hands. They want allies, not resources. Secretary General Grant called for order. What are you proposing, Ambassador Crawford? Daniel stood straight, looking at each council member in turn. I'm proposing something that may seem shocking. We continue negotiations with the Xalaxians as a distraction. Meanwhile, we form an alliance with the Arcturians and prepare our defenses. And then, Grant asked, and then we do something the Xalaxians would never expect from a primitive species like us. Daniel's eyes hardened. We strike first. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Daniel's shuttle moved quietly through the darkness of space. The small craft showed no running lights as it headed toward the far side of the moon. Officially, he was on a retreat to prepare for the next round of negotiations with the Xalaxians. In reality, he was on the most important secret mission of his life. We're approaching the rendezvous point, said the pilot, a young woman named Lisa. She kept her voice low even though no one could hear them in space. Any sign we're being followed? Daniel asked. No, sir. The stealth systems are working. The Xalaxians have no idea we've left Earth orbit. The shuttle slowed as they approached a crater on the dark side of the moon. Hidden inside was a ship unlike any Daniel had seen before. It had smooth lines and a strange, shimmering surface that seemed to bend light around it. An Arcturian vessel, Daniel whispered. The shuttle docked with the alien ship. Daniel took a deep breath before the airlock opened. This was humanity's first official contact with a second alien species. An Arcturian stood waiting. The alien was shorter than a human, with gray-green skin and 4 arms. Large, golden eyes studied Daniel carefully. Ambassador Crawford, the alien said, its voice surprisingly musical. I am Krell, representative of the Arcturian resistance. Welcome aboard our vessel. Daniel stepped forward and bowed slightly. Thank you for meeting with me, Ambassador Krell. They walked through corridors lined with technology far beyond human understanding. But unlike the cold, metallic design of Xalaxian ships, the Arcturian vessel felt alive, with walls that glowed with warm light. We were once like you, Krell said as they entered a meeting room. Peaceful, curious, eager to meet other beings among the stars. What happened? Daniel asked. The Xalaxians happened. They came to our world offering friendship. Within 5 years, our oceans were half empty, our mines stripped bare, and our people forced to work for them. Krell activated a display showing a beautiful green planet. This was our homeworld before the Xalaxians. The image changed to show a dry brown world with massive scars across its surface. This is what remains. Daniel felt cold. How did you survive? Some of us escaped. We built ships, gathered allies from other worlds the Xalaxians had attacked, and formed the resistance. For 50 years we have fought them, but they are powerful. We need allies. That's why I'm here, Daniel said. Earth wants to join your fight. Krell's golden eyes widened. Many species surrender to the Xalaxians. Few choose to fight. Humans are stubborn. We don't surrender easily. For hours, they discussed strategy. The Arcturians had developed technology specifically to counter Xalaxian weapons. They offered to share this knowledge with Earth. Our ships can't match theirs in direct combat, Daniel explained. But if we had your defensive systems, we will help, Krell promised. But you must understand, once you oppose the Xalaxians, there is no going back. They do not forgive, and they do not forget. We understand the risk, Daniel said firmly. When Daniel returned to Earth 3 days later, he carried with him plans for technology that could change the balance of power. But he also carried a heavy burden. He had committed humanity to a path that would lead to war. In a secure facility beneath the Pacific Ocean, Lieutenant Sophia Chen worked day and night with a small team of Arcturian engineers. They modified Earth's defense systems with the new technology. Will it work? Daniel asked as he observed their progress. Sophia looked up from her work, her face tired but determined. The shield technology is unlike anything we've ever seen. If the Arcturians are right, it should neutralize the Xalaxians' main weapons. Meanwhile, Zortek demanded to know why Daniel had been unavailable for 3 days. The Xalaxian grew increasingly suspicious. "We expected an answer to our proposal by now," Zortek said during their next meeting. "My superiors are becoming impatient." Daniel smiled pleasantly. "Good things take time, Ambassador. I have a new proposal to discuss, but I'll need all your delegation present. Let's arrange a summit meeting." Zortek's eyes narrowed. "A summit?" "Yes," Daniel said. "To finalize our agreement, 1 week from today." As Zortek left, Samantha approached Daniel. "The Security Council is waiting. They want to hear your plan." Daniel nodded. "It's time to tell them everything." Earth changed in the days leading up to the summit. On the surface, life continued normally. People went to work, children attended school, and the media reported on the exciting technology the Xalaxians might share. But beneath this calm facade, the planet prepared for war. Military ships moved into new positions under the cover of routine exercises. Soldiers trained with new weapons designed using Arcturian principles. Deep underground, civilian shelters were quietly stocked with food, water, and medical supplies. Admiral Hayes stood on the bridge of the Earth flagship Liberty, hidden behind the dark side of Mars. Around him, a fleet of Earth's best ships gathered. Engineers worked around the clock to install the Arcturian shield technology. "How much longer?" Hayes asked his chief engineer. 12 hours, sir. The power systems weren't designed for this kind of load." Hayes nodded. "Make it happen. We'll only get one chance at this." On the space station, Daniel prepared for his daily meeting with Zortek. The Xalaxian had grown increasingly demanding as the summit approached. "Your military movements concern us," Zortek said as soon as they sat down. "Our sensors detect unusual activity near Mars." Daniel kept his face neutral. "Annual training exercises. Nothing that should concern our friends." Zortek's black eyes stared at Daniel. "Friends share information. Friends don't hide things." "Speaking of hiding," Daniel replied calmly, "our deep space telescopes show 5 more Xalaxian ships entering our solar system yesterday." Friends would have mentioned that. For a moment, Zortek seemed surprised. Then his expression hardened. "Supply vessels only. For the cultural exchange after the treaty signing." Daniel nodded as if he believed this obvious lie. "Of course. The summit is still set for tomorrow. Will your full delegation attend?" "Yes. Our High Commander will join us to witness this historic agreement between our peoples." After Zortek left, Daniel called an emergency meeting with his team. "Their High Commander is coming. This confirms our intelligence," Kyle said. "The Xalaxians only bring their military leader when they're ready to move from diplomacy to conquest." Samantha looked worried. "Are we ready?" Daniel turned to Sophia, who had just arrived from the underwater facility. "Lieutenant Chen, status report. 80% of our fleet now has the Arcturian shields. The land-based defense systems are at 60%. We need more time." Daniel shook his head. "Time is the one thing we don't have. The Xalaxians are accelerating their plan. Our latest intelligence shows their main fleet moving from Saturn toward Earth. They'll be in striking position in 36 hours. "After the summit," Kyle said quietly. "Exactly. They expect us to sign their treaty, lowering our guard. Then they strike." Daniel stood up. "We need to alert the civilian evacuation teams. Get people moving to the shelters tonight." "How do we do that without causing panic?" Samantha asked. "Use the storm systems as cover. There's a hurricane approaching the East Coast and typhoons in the Pacific. Order evacuations for weather emergencies." As his team left to carry out their tasks, Daniel received a message from Secretary General Grant. "The Security Council is divided," she said, her face grim on the screen. "Some still believe we should try for a peaceful solution, What do you believe, Madam Secretary? She was silent for a moment. I believe I've seen enough evidence of Salaxian deception to trust your judgment, Ambassador. The evacuation orders are being issued. Our military is on high alert. Whatever you're planning for tomorrow, I hope it works. So do I, Daniel replied. That night, as millions of humans moved to underground shelters, Zortek sent a final message. Ambassador Crawford, tomorrow you will sign the resource treaty as written. No more delays. No more negotiations. If you refuse, there will be consequences. Daniel recorded his reply. I look forward to our summit, Ambassador Zortek. Rest assured, Earth is prepared to give you our final answer. As he ended the transmission, Daniel looked out at the stars. But it won't be the answer you're expecting, he whispered to himself. The Genesis orbital station shone like a jewel above Earth. Built specifically for the summit, its grand meeting hall featured a massive round table with the flags of Earth nations alongside the purple banner of the Salaxian Collective. Daniel arrived early with his team. Security officers checked every corner of the room for hidden devices. Are you ready? Samantha asked as she helped Daniel adjust his formal uniform. As ready as I'll ever be. He touched the small device in his pocket. It contained all the evidence they had gathered about Salaxian activities across the galaxy. World leaders began to arrive. They greeted Daniel with nods and whispers of encouragement or concern. The Chinese president leaned close as they shook hands. Our forces are in position, he said quietly. Good luck, Ambassador. The Russian president simply gave Daniel a firm handshake and a knowing look. The American president squeezed his shoulder. Whatever happens today, she said, know that Earth stands united. At exactly noon, the Salaxian delegation entered. 6 diplomats led by Zortek filed in first. Behind them came a taller figure dressed in ornate armor. A high commander of the Salaxian fleet moved with deadly grace, his black eyes scanning the room as if assessing targets. High Commander Vorlak, Zortek announced, leader of the Salaxian forces and representative of our Supreme Council. Vorlak did not bow or offer any greeting. He simply took his seat at the table, his posture rigid and confident. Secretary General Grant opened the proceedings. Today marks a historic moment in Earth's history, the signing of our first treaty with an extraterrestrial civilization. Daniel observed the Salaxians closely. They looked relaxed, almost smug. They believed victory was already theirs. Before we begin, Grant continued, Ambassador Crawford will say a few words. Daniel stood and walked to the center of the room. Cameras broadcast his image to billions of humans watching from shelters and homes around the world. For 6 months, we have engaged in dialogue with the Salaxian people, Daniel began. We have discussed technology exchange, cultural understanding, and resource sharing. The Salaxians nodded in approval. Throughout this process, we have learned much about our new friends from the stars, their advanced technology, their social structures, their needs. Daniel paused, looking directly at Vorlak. But there are things that Salaxians haven't shared with us. Things they hoped we wouldn't discover. The High Commander's posture stiffened. Zortek leaned forward, eye twitching rapidly. Daniel activated the device in his pocket. The room's displays came to life, showing images of 12 planets before and after Salaxian diplomacy. Lush worlds reduced to barren rocks. Oceans drained to nothing. Native species enslaved or extinct. The Salaxians have visited many worlds before Earth, Daniel continued, his voice growing stronger. They came as friends. They left as conquerors. They took what they wanted and discarded what remained. Zortek shot to his feet. These are lies. Primitive fabrications. Are they? Daniel asked calmly. He displayed intercepted communications between Salaxian ships. Your own words betray you. You speak of resource extraction timelines and resistance protocols. You discuss how easily Earth will fall once the treaty is signed. The room erupted in angry shouts from Earth's leaders. The Salaxians huddled together, conversing rapidly in their own language. High Commander Vorlak silenced his delegation with a gesture. He stood, towering over the humans around him. "You understand nothing," he said, his voice cold and precise. "Your world was chosen for the honor of serving the Scilaxian collective. Your resources will advance our civilization. Your people would have been permitted to live as our subjects. It is the natural order of things." Daniel met the alien's gaze without flinching. "Perhaps that is how things work in your part of the galaxy. But that is not how things work here." Vorlak's black eyes narrowed. "You have no choice, human. Our fleet stands ready. Sign the treaty or face extinction." The room fell silent. All eyes turned to Daniel. "Ambassador Crawford," Zortek said with forced patience, "be reasonable. Your primitive weapons cannot harm our ships. Your defenses cannot stop our attack. Sign the treaty. Save your people." Daniel picked up the treaty document. For a moment, he seemed to consider it. Then he tore it in half. The torn treaty fell to the floor. Silence filled the room as everyone stared at Daniel. High Commander Vorlak recovered first. "You have made a fatal mistake, human." Daniel stood tall, his voice clear and strong. "No, for the first time since you arrived, we are making the right choice." He pulled a small metal cylinder from his pocket and placed it on the table. It projected a hologram of an official document. "This is not a treaty of surrender. This is a formal declaration of war against the Scilaxian collective. Earth does not bow to threats. Earth does not surrender its resources. Earth fights." Vorlak laughed, a harsh sound like metal grinding. "You declare war. With what? Your primitive weapons. Your tiny fleet." "Not just Earth," Daniel replied. He pressed another button on the cylinder. The hologram changed to show a new document. It displayed the symbols of Earth alongside those of the Arcturians and 3 other alien civilizations. "Today marks the beginning of the Interstellar Alliance. 5 species united against Scilaxian aggression. 5 worlds you attacked, who now stand together." For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Vorlak's face. "Impossible. The other species were too weak, too divided to resist us. You underestimated them, just as you underestimated humans," Daniel said. "The Arcturians have shared their technology with us. The Polarians have provided their tactical expertise. The Zuvarians have offered their fleet. Together, we are stronger than you could ever imagine." Zortek grabbed a communication device from his belt. "We need immediate extraction. Activate the fleet." Nothing happened. Kyle stepped forward with a small device in his hand. "Your communication signals are being blocked, and your ships are currently experiencing technical difficulties." On cue, a display showed the Scilaxian vessels near Earth. Their lights flickered and went dark. "Arcturian technology," Daniel explained. "They've spent decades learning how to disable your ships without destroying them." Vorlak lunged at Daniel, his claws extended. Security officers moved quickly, restraining the alien commander. "You will all die for this," Vorlak snarled. Daniel shook his head. "No. What happens next is up to you. Order your remaining fleet to withdraw from our solar system, and we will allow you to leave with your diplomatic vessels. And if I refuse?" As if answering his question, new ships appeared on the display. Earth's hidden fleet emerged from behind Mars. From the dark side of the moon came Arcturian vessels, their strange designs unlike anything seen before. "Those are just the ships in our immediate area," Daniel said. "Alliance fleets are moving to protect every world you've threatened. The choice is yours, High Commander. Leave peacefully, or face the consequences of the war you've been waging across the galaxy for centuries." Secretary General Grant stepped forward. "The nations of Earth stand united in this declaration. We will not be conquered. We will not be exploited. We choose to fight." The other world leaders stood in solidarity. Vorlak looked around the room, seeing the determination on every human face. For the first time, the Scilaxian commander seemed uncertain. "You sign your own death warrants," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Daniel walked closer to the alien leader. You came to Earth expecting to find another easy conquest. Instead, you found something you've never encountered before. A species willing to stand and fight not just for ourselves, but for all the worlds you've destroyed. He gestured to the guards. Escort the Selaxian delegation to their shuttle. Make sure they leave peacefully. As the aliens were led away, Vorlak turned back. This isn't over, human. No, Daniel agreed. It's just beginning. After the Xalaxians departed, Admiral Hayes reported from the Liberty. The Xalaxian main fleet is retreating, sir. They're falling back to Saturn's orbit. Earth's leaders cheered, but Daniel remained serious. This is just the first day of a long war. The Xalaxians won't give up easily. They'll return with a larger force. Samantha joined him at the window as they watched the Xalaxian shuttle leave the station. Are you afraid? She asked. Daniel looked at Earth below, beautiful and blue. Yes, but for the first time since they arrived, I'm also hopeful. We're not alone in this fight anymore. On screens across Earth, people emerged from shelters to watch Daniel address the planet. Today, humanity takes its place among the stars not as conquerors or victims, but as defenders of freedom. The road ahead will be difficult, but we will face it together. Not just as Earth, but as part of something greater, the Interstellar Alliance.